Good morning. Today I want to talk about a book I was advised of when I first came to Syria. It was advised by a friend of mine. The book called Man's Search for Meaning for Viktor Frankl. Yes, Viktor Frankl. He was like a prisoner in concentration camps in the time of Nazis, and he is one of the founder of a new psychological or psychology branch after Freud, because Freud basically connected human behavior to animal instinct and sexual instinct in general. Viktor Frankl is a new psychological founder. He's like the third basic school of psychology, and he said that there is something more to human behavior than the animal or sexual instinct. Anyway, in his book about his experience in concentration camps, I choose the following good points actually, and I tried to go deep in the meaning of it because I read it two times already in Arabic, and this is in English. So the first one I want to talk about in in psychiatry there is a certain condition known as delusion of reprieve, or the condemned man immediately before his execution get the illusion that he might be reprieved at the very last minute. And he talked that we too clung to shred of hope and belief to the last moment that it would not be so bad. This is like the hope that you are giving that things are not so bad, or before execution, that somehow miraculously that you will be saved, or you will be put out of trial, for example, or out of death. This is called in psychology delusion of reprieve. So it's a really nice idea. This is about the danger of false hope. Thus, the illusion some of us still held were destroyed one by one, and then, quite unexpectedly, most of us were overcome by a grim sense of humor. We knew that we had nothing to lose except our so ridiculously naked lives. This is the type of humor that come into fact suddenly in really bad situation. I think a lot of us in general in life have experienced that. If someone now asks us the truth of Dystowski, he is talking about the great writer Dystowski statement that flatly define man as a being who can get used to anything. We could reply, yes, a man can get used to anything, but don't ask us how. So I think he's talking about the time. This maybe this said was by Dystowski when he was in in Serbia. He was also present for some time as a great writer of this century. I think it was Lessing who once said, "There is something which must cause you to lose your reason, or you have none to lose. An abnormal reaction to abnormal situation is a normal behavior." I think this is the new idea that Frankl have suggested, different from Freud school of analyzing human behavior, that not everything have to be correct. Like sometimes acting in a abnormal way or abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation, when the situation is totally abnormal, is the normal behavior. Is being unnormal, is in an unnormal situation, is the normal. And this is a very strong idea. Actually, I really like this idea. Apart from the already described reaction, the newly arrived prisoner experienced the torture of other most painful emotion, all of which he tried to deaden. First of all, has his boundless longing for his home and his family. This often becomes so acute that he felt himself consumed by longing. There was also a disgust with all the ugliness which surround him, even in its mere external forms. It is the disgust that the feeling that have felt by prisoner from all the surrounding or all the environment around them. Forgive me today because it's quite cold today, so I'm a little bit shaken of cold. Yeah, I'm not using my air conditioning facility in here. Okay, this is a very good one. Apathy. Apathy is, I think, it's the opposite of sympathy or empathy. It's the dullness of human feeling. The main symptom of the second phase while they were in prison was a necessary mechanism of self defense. So he defined apathy as a self defense mechanism. All effort and all emotion were centered on one task, preserving one's own life and that of the others or the other fellow around him. So, the dullness of a human spirit or the dullness of a human feeling is a normal reaction in such conditions. I think this is a totally new school of psychology, very different from Freud's school. And I really, although Freud had lots of good points and he was really the father of all psychology, I think Frankl didn't take how to say, didn't take the the real importance that he deserved in the field of psychology because he totally connected between human and human emotion as a new type of school or in psychology away from the sexual urges and the sexual cues that push all our action or that shape all our actions. This he's talking about a very beautiful actually and very strong remark. In spite of all enforced physical and mental primitiveness of the life in concentration camp, it was possible for a spiritual life to deepen. Sensitive people who were used to a rich intellectual life might have suffered much pain, but the damage to their inner selves was less. They were able to retreat from their terrible surrounding to a life of inner riches and spiritual freedom. Only in this way can one explain the apparent paradox that some prisoners of less hardy makeup often seem to survive camp life better than did those of robust nature. That means that strangely that the people who were like a little bit sensitive from the inside were being able to survive the experience or more than the people who were like tough and muscled, let's say, with a more strict and rigid uh, personality, which is something not normal. But this is the only way that he could explain, because they've been able to retreat from their terrible surrounding to a life of inner riches and spiritual freedom. A really good idea, actually. It's in this place of to take note of. This is one I really like. He's talking a thought of transfixed me. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it is, set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. Of course, there is a lot of mocking, especially in this type of environments, about love and feelings and this type of thing. But he noticed that most of the people who could clinch or could think about their loved ones, or they have someone that they loved, or a female, or a wife, or someone from the family that they really really loved, they could take this idea and keep it inside and continue to live and fight, because they only had this idea of a loved one. This is something strange to be discovered in prison life, actually, but it's an honorable way. In such a position, man can, through loving contemplation of the image he carries of his beloved, achieve fulfillment. Just having an image of someone you love can make you go further and fight further for your life. That's how can we understand that. How can be someone be broken from the inside by taking anything that he loved, or taking the idea of anyone, especially his wife, his beloved, let's say, girlfriend, his son, his anything. That's why how that's why how they uh, do in prisons to break the human spirit, by taking the idea of someone you love out of you. So the idea of love is really a true survival mechanism, actually, especially if it's pure. Because in general, sexual needs get less in this type of situation in prisons. This is one also. The intensification of inner life help the prisoner find refuge from the emptiness, desolation, and spiritual poverty of his existence, by letting him escape into the past. When given free rein, his imagination played with past events, often not important ones, but minor, happening and trifling things. His nostalgic memory glorified them, and they assumed a strange character. That's when a prisoner go and think about his past events, like his past memories, and he keep remembering very small things, and this can be very observed in his talk, when he talk about things that were not important in the past, but he talk about it in such a way that it gives him a new push toward life. And it's also a mechanism against the spiritual poverty of his existence. And you can find it, actually, you can directly spot that in a lot of people, even in people who are not very happy in their life or having difficulties. They tend to talk about this past experience in a new light and in a nostalgic, glorified way. And this is one of the worst thing that he talk about, is that the camp inmate was frightened of making decisions and of taking any sort of initiative whatsoever. This was the result of a strong feeling that fate was one's master, and that one must not try to influence it in any way, but instead let it take its own course. There was a great apathy which contributed in no small part to the feeling of the prisoner. At time, lightning decision had to be made, decision which spelled life or death. The prisoner will have preferred to let fate make the choices for him. I think this book is one of the best that I read. He's like, this is the book, and it was maybe published in the 80s, I think, and it's still, for me, one of the schools of psychology that I tried so much to take into me and understand how does human act in different situation. Really nice book, one of the best book, and one, and I think Viktor Frankl is without any doubt one of my best psychological and psychology shrinks that I would love to read for. So thank you for your time again. And I having difficulties after they stopped IGTV in Instagram. So good day, good night, and good afternoon. Hope to see you again sometime. And thank you for keep listening.